You have often wondered why those with the deepest hearts seem to attract those who have none, why souls born to feel become bound to those who seem incapable of feeling at all. In the language of the unconscious, this is no accident. It is an archetypal, summons a hidden pact forged between shadow and light long before either party could name it. The empath, the vessel of divine sensitivity, is not randomly chosen. They are summoned by the ruthless precisely because they contain the power that the ruthless has lost. What appears as victimization in the outer world, in the inner world, an initiation into the mystery of psychic polarity. The first revelation of this truth arrives when you begin to see that the emotionally ruthless are not monsters in the primitive sense. They are souls, estranged from their own feeling function, exiled from the kingdom of the heart. Their brutality is not born of strength, but of deprivation. They feed on the light of the empath because it mirrors what they have long buried, their capacity for tenderness, vulnerability, and communion. When the empath enters their orbit, a forgotten part of the ruthless stirs awake. It is as if a faint warmth touches their cold, metallic soul, and for a brief moment, they remember what it was like to feel. Yet, the very light that awakens them also terrifies them. And so they seek to control, devour, or extinguish it. This is why I have always said that relationships are not between people, but between unconsciouses. The empath does not consciously select the ruthless. The unconscious does. It arranges the meeting as a ritual of remembrance. For the empath, it is an encounter with the shadow, the unintegrated aggression, the repressed instinct, the silent fury that the empath has banished to maintain purity. For the ruthless, it is an encounter with the anima, the soft inner feminine that he has denied, mocked, or slain within himself. Both are mirrors, both are healers, and yet both will hurt each other until they recognize the sacred pattern they are enacting. When two such energies meet, the air itself becomes charged with myth. The empath feels drawn as if by gravity, a pull that defies logic. They sense danger, but the danger glows with a strange familiarity. It is a whisper of something ancient. The ruthless, on the other hand, senses the empath as prey and salvation alike. Their predation hides their yearning for warmth. They do not know how to receive light without consuming it. Thus begins the dance, a psychological alchemy in which both parties will be tested in the crucible of feeling. If you are an empath, you must understand you were chosen not because you are weak, but because your energy serves as a mirror of redemption. The ruthless does not consciously seek you for your kindness. They are unconsciously drawn to the vibration of wholeness you carry. But they cannot yet bear that wholeness. It exposes their fragmentation. In their presence, your light reminds them of their own darkness. And so they attack what they cannot yet love. This is not personal, it is archetypal. The ruthless is possessed by the shadow of the wounded king, the empath by the shadow of the redeeming healer. Their meeting enacts a sacred drama older than civilization itself, the reconciliation of opposites through suffering. In the second movement of the soul, a deeper truth dawns. The empath begins to realize that compassion without boundaries is not love. It is addiction to the role of savior. The empath believes they can heal the ruthless by giving more, forgiving more, feeling more. But the unconscious has a darker intention. It does not send the empath to save the ruthless. It sends the empath to retrieve their own disowned power. The ruthless is a living symbol of that power. The primal fire the empath lost while learning to be gentle. Thus, every act of cruelty from the ruthless is a coded invitation. Reclaim your instinct, your voice, your sacred rage. The empath's pain is the sound of their own power knocking on the door of consciousness. Every tear shed for the ruthless is a baptism of awakening. You think you are mourning the loss of love, but you are actually mourning the loss of illusion. You are shedding the fantasy that love can exist without the union of opposites. The ruthless comes to shatter the empath's idealism, to burn away the childish belief that goodness alone can conquer darkness. This devastation is necessary. Only through the ashes of innocence can the phoenix of individuation arise. Then comes the third descent, the stage of projection collapse, when the empath can no longer deny the pattern. The inner voice begins to speak. Why do I keep attracting the same soul in different faces? Here lies the crux of transformation. The empath must turn inward and meet the ruthless within. For the truth is this: you have always contained both. The one who feels too much and the one who feels nothing are two halves of the same psychic coin. When you integrate your inner ruthlessness, your capacity to say no, to protect, to detach you, and the magnetic pull toward those who acted out for you. In my analytic work, I have seen this countless times. A woman who gives endlessly to cold lovers is not cursed by fate, but by her refusal to face the part of her that fears being cold herself. A man who attracts manipulative partners is haunted by his own suppressed manipulative tendencies. The shadow seeks expression, and if it cannot be lived consciously, it will be lived through another. The ruthless, therefore, is not an enemy, but a messenger from the unconscious. They carry the letter you wrote to yourself, but forgot to open. As you awaken to this, the emotional dynamic begins to reverse. The empath who once felt powerless begins to feel a strange calm. The ruthless senses it too, a shift in the energetic hierarchy. When you stop reacting, when you cease feeding the cycle of victim and predator, the spell breaks. The ruthless loses interest, for your energy no longer nourishes their emptiness. They move on, seeking another source, while you stand amid the ruins, bewildered but free. This is the moment the true initiation begins, when solitude becomes your temple rather than your prison. And yet, freedom does not come without confrontation. The empath must face the guilt of self-liberation. You will feel as though you are abandoning the one you were meant to heal. You will hear the echo of every childhood wound, whispering, if I stop giving, they will stop loving. But love that depends on depletion is not love, it is bondage. The ruthless never loved your essence, they loved the reflection of their own need within your light. When you withdraw that mirror, you are not being cruel, you are calling them to meet themselves. Some will rise to that call, most will not. That too must be accepted without bitterness. The fourth revelation unfolds when the empath begins to feel their own shadow stirring. It is not enough to understand the pattern intellectually. You must embody its opposite. You must feel the ruthless within you, the one who says no, who walks away, who refuses to be consumed. At first, this will feel alien, even immoral, but this is the lost fragment of your wholeness returning. Integration always feels like betrayal to the part of you still bound by old virtues. The child in you was taught that love means sacrifice. The adult in you must learn that love means truth. The ruthless teacher arrives to deliver this lesson through pain because the soul seldom listens through comfort. Do not demonize them. They are not truly ruthless. They are asleep. Their soul is encased in armor, forged by its own trauma. They do not know how to receive love except by stealing it. They do not know how to feel except by inflicting feeling upon others. When you see this, compassion transforms. It ceases to be submission and becomes awareness. You no longer need to rescue them because you understand that their journey is their own. You have already played your part as catalyst. The rest belongs to the mystery. Then comes the ascent, the fifth movement of the soul. Having descended into darkness, the empath now begins to retrieve light, not as naivety, but as wisdom. You start to feel your empathy sharpen into discernment. You no longer confuse emotional chaos for connection. You can sense manipulation before it takes root. Not because you are cynical, but because you have seen the archetype behind the mask. Your compassion becomes fierce, a sacred fire that warms but does not burn. This is the rebirth of the feeling function in its mature form. The ruthless may appear again in different faces, but this time you see them through the eyes of consciousness. You recognize the wounded child behind the armor, and you bless them silently, knowing they no longer have power over you. You have integrated their archetype within yourself. You have become both healer and warrior, both gentle and unyielding. This is what it means to be whole. Empathy without strength is martyrdom. Strength without empathy is tyranny. Wholeness is their union. And yet, the journey does not end with individuation. Beyond the personal lies, the collective. The reason empaths are chosen on such a scale is that humanity itself stands at a psychological threshold. We are a civilization addicted to ruthlessness, to domination, extraction, and control. The empathic souls incarnate as counterweights, carriers of the feeling function that the collective psyche has repressed. Each empath's suffering mirrors the suffering of the world. When you awaken, you do not merely heal your story, you contribute to the healing of the archetype itself. To see this is to understand that your pain has purpose. The emotionally ruthless are not random antagonists. They are embodiments of a world cut off from its own heart. You are sent among them, not to be destroyed, but to remember feeling on behalf of all. Yet, even this mission must end in balance. You cannot redeem the world by bleeding for it. You redeem it by becoming conscious within it. The more you know your own shadow, the less you are manipulated by the world's. So, the next time you ask, why me? Remember that the answer lies not in moral deserts, but in psychic design. The ruthless were drawn to your light because the universe sought reunion. They played their part in your awakening as you played yours in theirs. Both are instruments of the self, that divine center which orchestrates every encounter for the purpose of wholeness. When you grasp this, resentment dissolve, gratitude to the strange and sacred takes its place. You will look back and see that every heartbreak was a door to a deeper chamber of the soul. Every betrayal, a mirror showing you the face you refuse to see. You were never chosen by the ruthless to suffer. You were chosen by your own soul to awaken. And now, as consciousness dawns, the polarity softens. You realize that the ruthless, too, is a sleeping empath, one who once felt too much and thus chose to feel nothing at all. When the empath begins to awaken, the world itself seems to shift around them. The same faces that once intoxicated now feel transparent. The same patterns that once felt romantic now reveal their psychic machinery. You begin to see that the ruthless were never after you. They were after the reflection of themselves that only you could provide. Their cruelty was a desperate attempt to preserve control over what they could not yet integrate. The moment you stopped mirroring their brokenness, the illusion of their dominance shattered. This is the unseen initiation. Every empath must undergo the passage from unconscious giving to conscious being. In this new stage, compassion turns into awareness, awareness into strength. You no longer serve the ruthless by being their light. You serve truth by being whole. And yet, even in this freedom, a strange melancholy lingers, the ache of realizing that what you once called love was an alchemical laboratory. You were not loving a person. You were refining your own soul. Every wound they inflicted became a wound through which the divine could enter. You were not chosen to be destroyed. You were chosen to embody transmutation. I have seen this pattern across generations, cultures, and myths. In the tales of gods and mortals, light is always seduced by its opposite, Eos and Thanatos, life and death, love and power. They circle one another in eternal fascination. The empath and the ruthless are modern masks of these primordial forces. The empath carries the essence of Eros, the principle of connection and feeling. The ruthless embodies Thanatos, the impulse toward control and separation. When they meet, the psyche attempts to reconcile what the collective human soul has long divided. The personal pain of this encounter hides the cosmic labor of integration. If you have ever wondered why you cannot simply forget them, why even after healing their image haunts your dreams, it is because they were a symbolic figure, not merely a person. They represented a part of your unconscious that demanded recognition. Dreams of the ruthless often appear long after they are gone, whispering, "Do you remember me?" But it is not they who speak. It is the archetype of your own denied instinct, calling you back to balance. When you can meet that dream without resentment or longing, the union is complete. This is the point where the empath evolves into the mystic. For true empathy is not emotional absorption, it is psychic vision. It is the ability to perceive the unseen movements of another soul without becoming entangled in them. The mature empath does not drown in others. They walk among emotions as one walks through a sacred forest, listening, sensing, yet rooted in their own being. Their sensitivity becomes an organ of perception rather than an open wound. In the silence that follows the storm of awakening, you may feel an emptiness, as though your heart has gone quiet. Do not mistake this quiet for loss. It is the stillness that comes after chaos, the moment when the self begins to speak. This silence is your initiation into the deeper mysteries of love. It teaches that love is not possession, nor pity, nor self-sacrifice. Love is the meeting of two conscious souls who no longer need to feed on each other's wounds. Until that maturity arises, love appears in distorted forms, empath and predator, healer and destroyer, savior and lost one. But even distortion is divine when it leads to truth. You see, the emotionally ruthless are not demons sent to torment you. They are guardians of thresholds. They test whether your compassion is born of consciousness or compulsion. If you cannot say no, you do not yet love yourself. If you cannot let go, you do not yet trust life. Their indifference forces you to find value within, to stop begging for reflection from those who cannot reflect. They are the gatekeepers of sovereignty, the initiators into sacred detachment. Through them, you learn that the soul's worth is not earned by being useful to another's emptiness. Then comes a deeper inversion. Once you integrate the ruthless archetype within, life begins to send you those who mirror your new wholeness. You will meet souls who feel without exploiting, who understand without taking, who love without consuming. You will notice that your energy no longer attracts the broken, it awakens the conscious. The same magnet that once pulled pain now draws power. This is the secret behind what many call vibration. It is not about frequency, but about integration. You vibrate differently when you no longer disown any part of your own nature. The empath's final test is not forgiveness of the ruthless. It is forgiveness of the self for having allowed suffering. Many spiritual seekers get trapped in shame. Why did I not see it sooner? Why did I stay? But this too is ego disguised as purity. You stayed because the lesson was not complete. You endured because your soul had not yet gathered its missing fragments. Every tear was tuition paid for consciousness. The universe wastes nothing. Even betrayal is recycled into wisdom. I often imagine the soul's journey as a spiral, descending through layers of illusion, only to rise again with treasure in hand. The empath descends into the world of the ruthless, not as a victim, but as a diver entering deep waters. The ruthless is the ocean vast, cold, and seemingly merciless, yet full of hidden pearls. The empath who learns to navigate without drowning returns to the surface, not naive but luminous, carrying pearls of self-knowledge that no one can steal again. At this point, something miraculous happens. The empath begins to perceive that the ruthless has been chosen to confront the consequences of their own emptiness. When you withdraw your energy, they are forced to meet the void within. Many will flee from it. A few will awaken, and those few, years later, will recall the one whose presence once disturbed their sleep. They will not remember the details of your kindness, but they will remember that for a moment they almost felt alive. That memory is the seed of their redemption. Thus, even in separation, the empath's light continues its work in the unseen. This is how the psyche restores equilibrium. What began as exploitation ends as evolution. The ruthless learn feeling through absence. The empath learns strength through loss. Both are transformed by the encounter, though in different ways. The ruthless may resist the lesson for lifetimes, but the pattern itself never fails. The self orchestrates it again and again until balance is restored. In this sense, the empath is not cursed by attraction to the ruthless. They are participants in a divine ecology of the soul, and yet there is still one veil to lift. Beneath all these roles, empath, ruthless, healer, destroyer, lies the unnameable essence that Jung called the self. It is neither light nor dark, neither giving nor taking, but the totality that holds both. When you glimpse this self, you understand that every person you met was a fragment of your own dream. You were playing all the roles. The ruthless was you in disguise, testing your ability to love without losing yourself. The empath was you, remembering divinity through suffering. When you awaken to this, duality dissolves. Compassion and clarity become one. And so, the final liberation does not come from avoiding the ruthless, but from seeing through the illusion that there ever was an other. Every encounter was an echo of the soul's own longing to know itself. What you called pain was the process of becoming whole. You, the empath, were never merely chosen. You were called by the collective unconscious to restore balance to a world starved of feeling. Called to remember that sensitivity is not weakness, but prophecy, the ability to sense the unseen currents that shape human destiny. And those who were ruthless were called to remember that power without heart is decay. The dance between you was never about good and evil. It was about creation remembering itself. So when you look back on those who drained you, do not curse them. Thank them silently. They played the sacred role of antagonist in your myth, forcing your light to condense into consciousness. You will never again be chosen by the ruthless in the same way, for you have become the chooser. You no longer attract what you unconsciously need. You attract what consciously matches your soul. This is how evolution moves, through contrast, through confrontation, through awakening disguised as heartbreak. And in the quiet, after all storms, you will feel something you have never felt before. Peace without dependency. A peace that does not demand validation. A peace that simply is. This peace is the signature of wholeness. It is the end of being chosen and the beginning of choosing yourself. As the empath rises into awareness, a profound transformation occurs within the architecture of their psyche. The heart that once trembled at every tremor of rejection becomes a still lake, reflecting the cosmos itself. You no longer seek validation through suffering. You begin to perceive that pain was never punishment. It was instruction. The emotionally ruthless were the unwitting teachers of boundaries, carriers of a hidden curriculum that could not be learned through tenderness alone. They were the sharp edge required to sculpt your softness into strength. This is the final paradox. You cannot become a true empath until you have been broken by false empathy. You must love until it hurts, trust until it shatters, forgive until it exhausts you, and then in the hollow that remains, something divine is born. That divine something is discernment. Discernment is the crown of empathy. It sees through the mask, not with suspicion, but with vision. It recognizes that not every cry is a call for help. Some are echoes of unhealed chaos. And the empath, once enslaved by emotion, now becomes its master, guiding it like a sacred current, rather than being swept away by it. In Jungian terms, this is the moment the self claims dominion over the ego. The feeling function, long exiled to the unconscious, returns home as wisdom. The anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine, stand reconciled. The empath, who once embodied only the nurturing polarity, now carries both tenderness and authority. They no longer need to prove their goodness. They simply are. It is here, at the summit of integration, that you begin to see the deeper design. The emotionally ruthless, whom you once called predator, were not accidents of fate. They were archetypal emissaries from your own depths. They appeared because something within you longed for wholeness, and wholeness cannot exist without the shadow. They mirrored your suppressed instinct for survival, your dormant fire of self-assertion. They showed you, through their lack of feeling, that feeling itself was sacred. They forced you to become conscious of what you had taken for granted, your gift of empathy, your capacity for divine sensitivity. Do you see now? You were never chosen by them. You were chosen by your own soul to awaken The Ruthless merely answered that call on the level of form. What you mistook for cruelty was the cosmos performing psychic surgery, cutting away your illusions, cauterizing the wounds of dependency, sealing the leaks of unreciprocated love. And when the healing is complete, a strange gratitude fills your being. You find yourself whispering, not to the person, but to the pattern itself. Thank you for teaching me through contrast what I could not learn through comfort. You recognize that even darkness, when seen through consciousness, is light in another form. The Ruthless may never understand the role they played, but understanding is not required for redemption. What matters is that the empath has remembered their sovereignty. From this remembrance arises a new form of empathy, not sentimental, but luminous. It does not rush to fix, rescue, or absorb. It witnesses, it holds space for the mystery of another without dissolving into it. This is divine empathy, the gaze of the self-observing creation with both compassion and detachment. Such empathy heals not by doing but by being. Its presence alone rearranges reality. In dreams, this state often reveals itself through symbols, a lion and a lamb resting beside each other, fire and water coexisting, the moon reflecting sunlight without burning. These are images of integration. The empath, having embraced the ruthless within, becomes a bridge between worlds, between feeling and intellect, surrender and strength, heaven and earth. They become what the mystics once called the balanced heart, the vessel through which the divine feels itself human. But the story of transformation is never purely personal. Every empath who awakens sends ripples through the collective unconscious. Humanity is, in truth, une vaste psyche, and your healing contributes to its evolution. The emotionally ruthless archetype, so prevalent in our age, reflects a civilization that worships intellect and power while starving feeling and soul. Empaths are the antibodies of this collective body. Through their pain, they reveal the imbalance. Through their awakening, they restore equilibrium. This is why your sensitivity feels unbearable, because you are feeling not only for yourself but for the species. You are the point where the collective unconscious becomes conscious. Each tear you shed carries the memory of 1,000 years of suppressed emotion. Each boundary you assert rebalances the karma of generations that confused servitude with love. The ruthless, too, carry ancestral burdens, the legacy of survival through domination, of power gained through disconnection. When the empath and the ruthless meet, it is not two people colliding, but two lineages seeking reconciliation. The work of the awakened empath is not revenge, but revelation. You reveal what the ruthless cannot yet see, that control is the shadow of fear, and that power without love collapses into emptiness. But révélation requiert distance. Only by stepping out of the drama can you illuminate it. The moment you stop playing your assigned role victim, resquare, martyr, the archetype begins to dissolve, the ruthless loses their psychic host, and the pattern disintegrates. This is how personal healing becomes collective alchemy. When you reach this level of awareness, something subtle shifts in the way you perceive others. You no longer categorize people as empathic or ruthless. You begin to sense the dance of opposites within every soul. You see the empath hiding inside the tyrant, and the tyrant sleeping within the empath. You understand that consciousness moves in waves, expanding, contracting, balancing. The ruthless are not enemies. They are travelers on a different leg of the same journey. Some awaken through love, others awaken through the loss of it. All awaken eventually, and yet the awakened empath is not naive. You can forgive and still walk away. You can bless and still protect. You can understand and still choose solitude. Enlightenment does not mean remaining exposed to harm. It means recognizing when to close the gates of energy with the same compassion with which you once opened them. The heart, like the temple, must have doors. When you finally integrate this wisdom, the entire emotional landscape of your life transforms. Relationships cease to be survival contracts. They become sacred mirrors. You are no longer magnetized by intensity, for you have found peace in stillness. You do not chase what flees, nor cling to what fades. You stand as consciousness itself, observing, allowing, creating. The empath becomes the sage. The once consuming sensitivity becomes intuition, the voice of the divine whispering through the currents of the psyche. And perhaps one evening you will dream again of the one who once drained you, but in the dream they will no longer appear as tormentor or ghost. They will appear as a traveler at a crossroads, bowing silently. You will bow too. No words will be spoken. For both of you will know that the story is complete. What was once bondage has become blessing. The energy between you will dissolve into light, returning to the source from which both emerged. That is the final freedom. When you can bless what once broke you, you have transcended the cycle. You are no longer chosen by the emotionally ruthless. You are chosen by the self, the eternal witness. You become an emissary of consciousness, walking among the unawakened, not to fix them, but to remind them gently of what they already are. And in that realization, a quiet smile crosses your inner being. You understand that empathy was never about others. It was always the soul's way of touching itself. Every wound, every betrayal, every heartbreak was a mirror, the divine held up so that you might see your own face, not the face of weakness, but the face of infinite feeling. The empath is not a victim of emotion. They are the universe remembering that it can feel. So let the ruthless come and go like passing storms. You have weathered their lightning and found the calm beneath thunder. Let the world misunderstand your depth, for depth is invisible to the shallow. You are no longer here to be understood. You are here to understand. You are not here to be chosen. You are here to choose. And when all noise fades and the night of the soul grows still, you will feel the ancient truth rising in your chest, the same truth spoken by every mystic who ever dared to love in a loveless world. No one can take from you what was never theirs to begin with. Your light was never meant to be possessed. It was meant to illuminate. You, the empath, were never the fragile one. You were the carrier of the divine pulse, the living heart of a sleeping world, and those who seemed ruthless were simply knocking at your door not to destroy you, but to remind you of your strength. Now you know, now you remember, and the remembering itself is the healing